Welcome to another true ancient history. The Anunnaki Connection. Long before recorded history, ancient Sumerians wrote down a story that would blur the line between myth and reality. A story of beings from another world, beings who came to Earth not as visitors, but as saviors of their dying planet. The Anunnaki, as they are called, are said to have arrived from a distant planet, Nibiru, a world on the brink of collapse. With their advanced technology and knowledge, the Anunnaki sought a solution to their planet's crisis, a solution that would tie their fate to ours in ways we're still uncovering today. Over 450,000 years ago, the Anunnaki faced a desperate dilemma. Their planet's atmosphere was deteriorating, and only one resource could save them: gold. But their own planet could no longer produce it in the quantities they needed. So, they turned their gaze to Earth, a planet rich with the precious metal. The question was, how to mine it in a way that wouldn't jeopardize their own dwindling resources. The answer came from a startling place: genetic engineering. The Anunnaki, led by their chief scientist Enki, decided to create a workforce of their own. They combined their DNA with that of early humans, specifically Homo erectus, crafting a new species, Homo sapiens, designed for one purpose: to mine gold. What began as an experiment for labor soon transformed into something much more. These newly created humans were intelligent, resilient, and capable of learning. Over 6,000 years ago, the Sumerians had detailed maps of our solar system. The Sumerians created these drawings using clay. The surviving drawings show that they understood that the Sun is a star at the center of the solar system and that other planets revolve around it. They even accurately sketched the orbits and positions of the planets. Interestingly, some of their paintings also depict strange images with giant entities. The Sumerians considered them to be deities. Intriguingly, some of the drawings of these gods even display symbols resembling human DNA sequences. Additionally, they had symbols related to medicine, which bear significant resemblance to modern medical symbols. To this day, we still cannot understand how thousands of years ago, the oldest civilization of mankind had such profound knowledge of astronomy. This raises the question of whether this ancient civilization was not backward, but rather had advanced far beyond our current understanding of them. For thousands of years, humans revered the Anunnaki as gods, their presence a guiding force in the rise of early civilizations in Mesopotamia. Yet, as human societies grew and evolved, the relationship between the two species became increasingly complex. The legends of the Anunnaki were passed down through generations, evolving into myths and divine stories, but the reality of their influence on human history remained ever present. When the ancient cuneiform tablets of Mesopotamia were discovered and deciphered in the late 19th century, they would literally transform human understanding of history. Prior to their discovery, the Bible was considered the oldest and most authoritative book in the world, and nothing was known of the ancient Sumerian civilization. The translation of the Epic of Gilgamesh allowed cuneiform tablets to be interpreted more accurately. The German philologist George Friedrich Grotefend, L. 1775 to 1853, first deciphered cuneiform prior to 1823, and his work was furthered by Henry Creswick Rawlinson, L. 1810 to 1895, who deciphered the Behistun inscription in 1837. As well as the works of Reverend Edward Hincks, L. 1792 to 1866, and Jules Oppert, L. 1825 to 1905. The brilliant scholar and translator George Smith, L. 1840 to 1876, however, contributed significantly to the understanding of cuneiform with his translation of the Epic of Gilgamesh in 1872. This translation allowed other cuneiform tablets to be interpreted more accurately, which overturned the traditional understanding of the biblical version of history of the time and made room for scholarly, objective explorations of the history of the Near East to move forward. Early cuneiform. The earliest cuneiform tablets, known as proto-cuneiform, were pictorial, as the subjects they addressed were more concrete and visible: a king, a battle, a flood, and were developed in response to the need for long-distance communication in trade. Sophisticated compositions were unnecessary, since all that was required was an understanding of the type and quantity of goods shipped, their price, and the name and location of the seller. Scholar Jeremy Black comments on early cuneiform. For centuries after the first appearance of writing in southern Iraq in the late 4th millennium BCE, it served an exclusively administrative function. Cuneiform was a mnemonic device designed to aid accountants and bureaucrats, rather than a vehicle for high art. These early pictographs came to be replaced by phonograms, symbols representing sounds, in the city of Uruk by c. 3200 BCE. Cuneiform had developed in complexity by the time of the early dynastic period, 2900 to 2334 BCE, as, once the craft of writing was understood, people found more concepts they wanted to express and preserve for the future. Once writing was discovered, the ancient Sumerians sought to record virtually all of the human experience. Part of that experience naturally touched on the origin of humanity, which then suggested the origin of all aspects of the human experience. The goddess Nisaba, formerly an agricultural deity, now became the goddess of writing and accounts, even the divine scribe of the gods, in response to the development of the written word. As the subject matter became more intangible, the will of the gods, creation, the afterlife, the quest for immortality, the script became more complex so that, before 3000 BCE, it needed streamlining. The representations on tablets were simplified, and the strokes of the stylus conveyed word concepts, honor, rather than word signs, an honorable man. The written language was further refined through the rebus, which isolated the phonetic value of a certain sign so as to express grammatical relationships and syntax to determine the meaning. In clarifying this, the scholar Ira Spar writes, "This new way of interpreting signs is called the rebus principle. Only a few examples of its use exist in the earliest stages of cuneiform from between 3200 and 3000 BC. The consistent use of this type of phonetic writing only becomes apparent after 2600 BC. It constitutes the beginning of a true writing system characterized by a complex combination of word signs and phonograms, signs for vowels and syllables, that allow the scribe to express ideas. By the middle of the 3rd millennium BC, cuneiform primarily written on clay tablets was used for a vast array of economic, religious, political, literary, and scholarly documents. Also, according to the Sumerian tablets, Enuma Elish, also known as the 7 Tablets of Creation, tells the story of the great god Marduk's victory over the forces of chaos and how he established order in the creation of the world. According to the cuneiform script, in the beginning the earth was ruled by human-like gods. Today, the Anunnaki's legacy lingers in the ruins of ancient civilizations, in the myths we tell, and in the gold that still fuels our world. Whether they were gods, visitors from the stars, or something else entirely, the Anunnaki's impact on humanity is undeniable. And perhaps, just maybe, the answers to some of humanity's greatest mysteries lie in the dusty tablets they left behind.